Take a slow walk down any grocery store aisle. Hundreds of products, thousands of choices, colorful packaging promising freshness, quality, and value. You toss items into your cart without a second thought. But here's a question most of us never stop to ask. When you hand over your money at the checkout, where does it actually go? That $10 you spent on pasta sauce, that $20 bag of groceries, that $40 restaurant meal, who is really pocketing the profit? The answer is not simple. Between the soil where food is grown and the table where it is eaten, there exists a sprawling, interconnected web of farmers, processors, distributors, retailers, traders, and corporations. Each one takes a cut. Each one plays a role. But not all of them share equally. Most people have no idea how this system truly works, and that is exactly what we are here to change. So let's start at the very beginning of the food supply chain, the farmer. These are the people waking up before sunrise, working through harsh weather, and dedicating their lives to growing the food that feeds entire nations. You would think they would be among the biggest earners in this system, but the reality is strikingly different. Take a simple loaf of bread sitting on your grocery store shelf, priced at around $3. The wheat farmer who grew the grain receives roughly 5 to 10 cents from that sale. That is less than 3% of what you paid. Or consider a carton of milk priced at $4. The dairy farmer typically takes home around $1, sometimes even less after expenses. The person doing the most essential, backbreaking work at the foundation of our entire food system is walking away with the smallest slice of the pie. So where's the rest of that money going? The corporations supplying the inputs profit handsomely, while the people actually growing your food struggle to break even. Even the little revenue they do earn gets eaten up by skyrocketing input costs. Seeds, fertilizers, fuel, equipment, and labor have all surged in price over the past decade. And here's the troubling part. These inputs are not sold in a free and open market. A handful of massive agricultural corporations essentially control the supply. Just 4 companies control roughly 60% of the global seed market. A similarly small group dominates fertilizer production. This means farmers have almost no bargaining power when buying what they need to grow food. They pay whatever price these giants set. Once food leaves the farm, it enters a world where raw ingredients become something far more valuable. A bushel of wheat worth a few dollars transforms into branded cereals, pasta, and snack foods, generating hundreds of dollars in retail revenue. This transformation, known as value-added processing, is where serious money begins to accumulate. Food processors and manufacturers sit at a powerful middle point in the supply chain. Companies like Nestlé, Unilever, PepsiCo, Kraft Heinz, and Archer Daniels Midland turn basic commodities into the packaged products filling every grocery shelf. These conglomerates operate at a massive scale, controlling dozens of beloved brands under a single corporate umbrella. The processing sector is remarkably concentrated. Just 10 companies control roughly 90% of the global packaged food market. Their ability to buy raw ingredients cheaply, manufacture at enormous scale, and charge premium prices for branded goods creates profit margins that farmers could only dream of achieving. Once food leaves the processing plant, it enters another largely invisible layer of the supply chain, distribution and logistics. Before a product ever reaches a store shelf, it typically passes through regional warehouses, cold storage facilities, and a network of freight carriers, each adding their own costs along the way. Large logistics companies like C&H Robinson, McLean Company, and Cisco manage enormous portions of food movement across the country. They negotiate contracts, coordinate trucking routes, and operate massive distribution centers, and they charge handsomely for it. Transportation costs, fuel surcharges, refrigeration fees, and warehousing expenses all get baked into the final price consumers pay. These markups can range from 10 to 30% depending on the product and distance traveled. What makes this layer particularly striking is how invisible it remains to everyday shoppers. You see the farmer on the packaging and the store at checkout, but the logistics giant quietly collecting its cut stays completely out of frame. Now we reach the most visible player in the food supply chain, the retailer. Supermarket chains and big box stores like Walmart, Kroger, and Costco sit at the end of the line, but make no mistake, they hold enormous power over everyone behind them. Retailers dictate terms to suppliers with an iron fist. Want your product on their shelves? You may need to pay slotting fees, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars just for shelf placement. Miss a sales target, and your product gets pulled without hesitation. But perhaps their most powerful weapon is the private label product. Store brands are manufactured cheaply and placed right next to name brands, often undercutting them on price while delivering higher margins to the retailer. Despite selling everyday necessities like bread, milk, and eggs, Major retail chains consistently post profit margins that would make most farmers weep. The checkout counter, it turns out, is where the real money is made. Meanwhile, every other player in the chain profits from that farmer's effort without ever touching the soil. Consider your morning cup of coffee. A farmer in Ethiopia or Colombia receives roughly 1 to 2 cents for every dollar you spend at a major coffee chain. That same cup retails for $5 to $7. For chocolate, cocoa farmers in West Africa earn approximately 6% of the final chocolate bar price, while the bar itself sells for $2 to $3 in Western stores. With fresh produce, a strawberry farmer receives around 20 cents per pound, while consumers pay upwards of $2.50 per pound at retail. These are not rounding errors. These are structural gaps baked into the system. Beyond the farm, the processing plant, and the retail shelf lies another powerful force shaping what you pay for food: financial markets. Commodity exchanges like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange allow traders to buy and sell futures contracts on wheat, corn, soybeans, and other staples. These are essentially bets on what food prices will be months from now. Here is the striking part. Many of these traders never handle a single grain of wheat. Hedge funds, investment banks, and commodity speculators move billions of dollars through agricultural markets purely for profit. When speculative money floods into food commodities, prices spike. When it exits, prices crash. Farmers cannot plan around this volatility. Consumers absorb the shocks at checkout. The 2007 to 2008 global food crisis was partly fueled by speculative trading, pushing millions into hunger. Financial players profit handsomely while the real-world consequences fall on those least able to bear them. Now here is where things get even more frustrating. Governments around the world spend billions of dollars every year on agricultural subsidies, programs that are supposed to support farmers and keep food systems stable. But when you look closely at where that money actually lands, the picture is deeply troubling. In the United States alone, the federal government distributes tens of billions in farm subsidies annually. Yet study after study shows that the majority of those funds flow not to struggling small family farmers, but to large agribusinesses, wealthy landowners, and corporate farming operations. The bigger your operation, the more subsidy money you tend to receive. Small producers, the ones who actually need financial support to survive, often receive a fraction of what giant agricultural corporations collect. So in a system already tilted toward the powerful, government policy ends up reinforcing that imbalance rather than correcting it, effectively using taxpayer money to further consolidate corporate control over our food supply. The global food economy feeds 8 billion people, yet its profits flow to remarkably few hands. A handful of multinational corporations now control the global food economy from top to bottom. Just 4 companies control roughly 60% of the world's seed market. A similar concentration exists in agrochemicals, grain trading, meat processing, and retail. Names like Cargill, Archer Daniels Midland, Bayer, and Nestlé appear at nearly every link in the chain. This is what economists call an oligopoly, and in food systems, it carries serious consequences. When so few players control so much, they set the terms. Farmers in Brazil, Kenya, and India face the same squeeze, paying high prices for patented seeds while receiving low prices for their harvests. Food security becomes fragile when disruptions hit these concentrated networks. But the story does not end with corporate dominance. Around the world, communities and entrepreneurs are actively pushing back against this profit imbalance, building systems that return more value to the people who grow our food. Farmers' markets allow producers to sell directly to consumers, cutting out middlemen entirely and keeping more money in local hands. Direct-to-consumer models, like community-supported agriculture subscriptions, let families pay farmers up front, sharing both risk and reward. Food cooperatives give members collective buying and decision-making power, prioritizing people over profit margins. Fair trade certifications guarantee minimum price floors for farmers in developing nations, protecting them from devastating market swings. Meanwhile, regenerative agriculture initiatives are attracting investment and consumer interest by combining environmental restoration with fairer economic models for growers. None of these solutions are perfect or universally scalable yet. But together, they represent a growing movement proving that a more equitable food chain is not just idealistic thinking, it is already happening. The future of food is not written yet, and you have a real voice in writing it. Now you know the story behind the price tag. Farmers earning fractions of every dollar. Input costs controlled by agricultural giants. Processors, distributors, and retailers each claiming their cut. Financial speculators influencing prices from trading floors. Subsidies flowing upward instead of downward. A handful of corporations quietly controlling what the world eats. That knowledge matters more than you might think.